Uh, I believe the biggest part of this is not more so what is community policing. It's why I'm doing this. What's my story, and why is this so important to me? I'm sorry if I get a little bit emotional. For starters, I grew up dealing with a lot of discrimination in my family. I would call the area I lived in suburban, but it's not really suburban. There wasn't a lot of trouble in my neighborhood. My house was mostly the trouble because of my brothers. But I'm not here to sugarcoat with you. I'm gonna be completely realistic and honest with you because that's what this is all about. My dad sold drugs growing up. He provided for my family, and as a kid, I wish I could say I was blind and naive to know that he did that, but I wasn't. I knew. I would see things and hear things. I was very an observant kid, so I witnessed a lot of that. My mom tried to protect me from it, but she didn't really do much justice with that exactly. But it kind of all changed one day. My perspective on the life that I was living in a series of events that I could say left me pretty much traumatized to this day. Um, it all started when I came home from school one day. I was probably in first grade, maybe even younger. And my normal routine would like be getting off the school bus and going to like where they dropped me off. It was in front of my house. So I would walk up the stairs, and usually my father would be waiting there for me. But on that day, for some odd reason, he wasn't. It was me and my two other brothers, Lucky and Gio. But instead of him being there, the door was closed, and I had walked upstairs to my house, and I saw my mother on the couch with a letter in her hand crying. Instantly, you would think my first response would be, why are you crying? What's wrong? But it wasn't. I'm a daddy's girl, so my main question was, where was my father? Um, he wasn't waiting for me at the front door, so I questioned my mom, where was he? And by the look in her eyes, there wasn't no good news at all. She had told me they had taken him, but as a kid, who were they? I just remember like my adrenaline rushing, and threw my things on the floor. Like I ran downstairs to find him. And where we lived, it's a family home, so there's two floors. And when you go down to the second floor to the basement, in the hallway there's a closet. And when I had looked in the closet, I had noticed that there was like this big mess. I didn't. It's not like my mom or my dad. We're pretty much very clean people, so it was very weird why there was a mess in the closet, but it literally looked like somebody had purposely made the mess. So I was very confused. I ran to my mom and dad's room. He wasn't there. There was also a mess in there too. The drawers were all over the floor. My dad's jewelry was gone. It looked like somebody had robbed us, and that wasn't the case. I couldn't process it. I didn't understand it. And if you don't know where the story is going, my dad had gotten arrested. My house got raided by the police. They had took my dad, his money, and his drugs. And my dad served 18 months in prison for drugs. It didn't make me hate the cops. I was still very young. I couldn't comprehend everything that was happening. Um, I got older though, and it wasn't my dad anymore. It was my brother. My brother had turned to the streets, so it was hard because you would think, why would they turn this way? I wouldn't make excuses for them in a way. I wouldn't call it an excuse, but as for my dad, he grew up in the hood. He grew up in Chad Brown. So his mother died when he was 14, and he didn't have nobody. He was the black sheep of the family, you could say. And he turned to the streets to help him, to provide a life for himself so he could survive. And that's why he did what he did. And I'm not mad at him. Definitely not mad at him. I'm thankful for my father and everything he's done for me, because he showed me what it is to hustle and have to build yourself up from nothing. and I could thank my parents for that, especially him. But seeing my older brother turning to the streets with no reasoning behind it is what really left me confused. It was another day where I was in my room and I heard like really loud knocks on the door. My mom had just left for work. Me and my brothers were waiting outside for the bus to come pick us up. And I don't know exactly who they were, but it looked like the army, maybe the police, but there was so many of them, maybe 15, 20. They had huge guns and they were all in front of my house asking for my brother, Brian Medina. Where was Brian Medina? Where's he at? Who he lives with? Who's his baby mother? And they was just interrogating my other brothers, so much to the point where they were starting to be physical and hostile with them. They accidentally had mistaken my brother Lucky for Brian. It was traumatizing because he was about like 15. He didn't know what was going on. I don't think none of us knew what was going on. I just knew they were looking for my older brother. My mom raised us to stick by each other, so we didn't even know where Brian was. But even if we did, we knew we wasn't gonna say where he was. At this moment in my life, I knew that wasn't the end of whatever I would call this. Of course, I grew up a black girl, and there was no doubt about that. I knew what the color of my skin was. I knew who I was. I just never thought I would have to face the one thing that you hear about on TV or you read it in your history books in middle school, and that being discrimination, racism. And it was not only me, but my brothers, men of color. This brings me here right now, at this moment, to tell my story and reasoning behind this all. Mostly, currently, my reasoning being the day after my birthday, to be exact, August 25th, 2022, I had gotten a call around 7 o'clock at night that my brother was shot and stabbed. Hold on, I'm sorry.
What is happening?
They're gonna fix it. We don't have to leave. He said we don't have to.
Yeah. He was shot and stabbed, and he almost lost his life. At that moment, it felt like my whole world had shattered in front of me. Like, couldn't breathe. It felt like
They're about to turn it.
it felt like my lungs were collapsing in a way. I just remember like sitting there with the phone in my hand and praying and crying just that my brother would come home to me, because that's all that mattered. When you live a life like that, it's kind of like they tell you you either end up in jail or in a grave, and it's kind of that's it. There's no in between. There's no way out, they tell me all the time. And I really thought this was the end for him. And thankfully he's alive, and I'm happy that he is, but he's currently in prison. And again, my whole world is completely shattered, and I'm trying to stay strong for him because that's what he'd want. He would be proud of me. He would be happy to be here right now and see me do this. So I'm doing this for him. And I won't get into the full details of why he's in prison, but I can say that I believe my brother's wrongfully incriminated. I'm not saying he's a saint because I know who he is and I know what he's done, but I know my brother enough to know that what he's getting charged for wasn't him. But I am bold enough to tell you that ever since that situation had happened, my brother had carried a gun on him. And I don't blame him at all. Not one bit. I would not say that he's wrong. It's kind of a life or death situation, and he had to do what he had to do to protect himself. And I would rather my brother be in prison than dead. So, yeah. They're charging him for other things, and I wouldn't say that it is him. I wouldn't say that it isn't him. I don't know. I just know that this has been a really hard thing to process. It's always been hard to process for me. My whole life, I have to keep this strong personality or demeanor in a way, because I'm the youngest out of them all, and in some way, in other people's eyes, they would say my siblings failed, and I kind of have to be the one to make it out for them, and that is a lot on me. It's a lot to carry. It's a lot to hold on to, because when you feel like you got 5,000 eyes on you all the time, watching your every move, your every word that you speak, it becomes a lot to handle. And as many of you know, I take pride in the life I want to live. I know who I want to be. I know the life that I want to achieve. And for those who don't know what that is, I want to be part of the criminal justice system, and specifically a criminal defense lawyer, because of the things that I've seen and experienced. At first, I wanted to be a cop, and then I went to the Police Explorers of Providence. And I realized it's just not for me. Not because of what I went through, but you don't want to work out for 2 hours and push yourself to a limit where you literally can't put yourself through anymore. And then they want to sit you down in a room and talk about the 15 amendments and what we should do today and how to be a person and how to be a great citizen. Like, honestly, you just tore me up, and now you want to be all nice to me. Literally yelled at me for hours about getting one push-up, but you want to talk to me nice now? No, we're not friends. We're not cool. But it's just not for me. And, you know, a part of me despises Providence Police for arresting my brother, because I wish it would have happened before. I think if I was younger, it would have been harder. It would have been easier for me to process it all at once. And I say this because it would always be hard for me. This is my brother. But it's just, this is a very special year for me. It's a lot for us as a family. I'm the last of my mom's 5 kids to graduate. I'm the only one going to a 4-year college with her mind set on what she wants to do. And because this is such a special moment for me, my brother's supposed to be here right now, front row seat, watching me. He was supposed to be at my graduation, clapping for me. And he was supposed to be there for my valedictorian speech, because he is a big part of my process on why I'm doing what I'm doing and why I am the way I am. So it's hard. It's very big for me. It's very big for us. And by the looks of it, he won't be here either when I leave off to college. And because I am moving out of state, it's kind of hitting me in a harder way, because I wish I could say that I got my brother's hug and kiss goodbye before I left, because they won't see me until like November. And that's just not something somebody wants to leave with. But besides that, it's important you know that I've had this mindset my whole life, where cops were just all bad because of the experiences I've been through and what I've seen. And there are a lot of cops out there who truly just have no soul, and I believe are truly just spiteful and don't deserve their badge. But I can say during my time at the Police Explorers, I've had good times with good cops. Not even cops, they're people. And it's just, I've seen another side of these officers where you see who they really are as people. You look past their gun, you look past their badge, you see them for who they really are. And we get mad at them. I feel like it's just we have these stereotypes that we carry on with us, and it's just like, okay, well, I done seen all these cops on the internet do this, and this, so they're just all bad. That's it. They're just all bad. They're pure spiteful. They don't care about us. And I had that mindset for so long, and it changed in just in 1 year, not even 6 months. I took one college class with the ex-cop, the best person I've ever met. I could say my professor was literally the most sweetest, kindest person I've ever met. Until this day, he still reaches out to me. He still helps me in my other classes. He still encourages me to do more, to do the best, to be the best me. Mark England is really him. He's really him. But I've learned from these mistakes. I learned from my mistake of carrying this stereotype from my personal experience, and it taught me so much. It's almost funny because I remember being at the Police Explorers, and one of the cops had arrested my brother before, and she had looked at me and she said, "You're Brian Medina's sister." I looked at her and I said, "Yeah, I'm him." She done said my address and everything. Said, "I'm his little sister." She looked at me and she said to me, "You're nothing like him." And in a way, your first instinct would be to like get offended. I'm not offended though. I wasn't offended. I kind of laughed it off because what do you mean I'm nothing like him? We were raised by the same people in the same household. I don't look at him the way you look at him. We have two different perspectives of him. I know him for who he really is. You know him because of how you know him. I know my brother's not really like that. I know the real Brian. You know the Brian that you see in the streets. That's not him. And she said to me, "How do you wish to be a cop with a brother like that?" And I told her, I said, "That's my older brother. That's my second father. I'll do anything in this world to protect him. If that meant being a cop just so I could protect him, it would mean exactly that. And I would exactly do that, protect him at all costs." But as a community, I feel like we need to stop having these misconceptions on who these police officers are, especially Providence. I know a lot of people have these strong opinions about Providence police, but there's some of them who are actually really good people, and that's why I'm here today. I'm introducing something new to the people my age, something new to all of us, and that is community policing, where we interact to find ways from what we see and what we hear, and to put our differences aside to make our community a safer and better place. And it's not, when we come together, all together, it's a better impact than us doing it separately. We can't expect better from the police if we're not communicating with them, and they can't expect better from us if they're not communicating with us. And I first-handedly experienced it as an explorer or candidate. They would literally make me go to these events where I would have to deal with people. I already work at Burger King, and I don't like people. So it's really hard. It's really hard. But you would see how these officers who would yell at us for hours to get a push-up right would sit here and interact with the police. Officer Di, for example. Oh my God. She was probably the worst besides Officer Grimes. Officer Grimes had me choked. He was so, like, they would always, like, they would sit there and embarrass us and, like, didn't we teach you this last week? And you still don't know how to do it? Okay, we'll do it again, with their sarcasm. And then when you see them in public, he has this big smile on, got his chest puffed out. He's like, oh yeah, I'm this guy. And it's just like, you see a difference in these people. Even though he really did have a cocky attitude. Like, the last time I was there before I decided to leave, we was taking a test and he was just like, he was yelling at me. He was like, you don't remember nothing on the test? I said, do you remember everything? Like, he made me do 3 push-ups for that. He was not playing with me. He really made me do 3 push-ups. But yeah, that's my story, and that's why I'm doing this. Yeah.